The following is a brief video timeline presentation of the 10 presidents who were in office right before the Civil War. In it, you will learn of who the presidents were, the years they served in office, and the party they represented, as well as a few significant events that occurred during their term. The first president we'll be talking about is John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was the 6th president of the United States. He was in office from 1825 to 1829. Originally a Federalist, he was later elected president under the Democratic Republican Party. Something John Quincy Adams was in strong support of was federal involvement in the economic development of the country. According to LeonardoNewtonic.com, Adams had many plans for infrastructural and educational developments. Many of his plans faced defeat in Congress because of opposition he faced from Jackson's supporters. One significant political event that occurred during his presidency was the finishing of the Erie Canal, although he did not initiate its building. One project he did initiate was the building of the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal in 1828. A famous quote by John Quincy Adams states, "Always vote for principle, though you may vote alone." The next president we'll be talking about is Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was the 7th president of the United States. He was president from 1829 to 1837. According to study.com, Jackson's presidency fundamentally altered U.S. politics. As a Democrat, Jackson believed in supporting state rights, but also had a strong conviction that the states' rights should not impede upon the survival of the Union. I think one of the most significant events that occurred during his presidency was the campaign against the Second Bank of the United States, known as the Bank War of 1833. He was successful in bringing down the bank, yet it would prove to have dramatic repercussions as American history progressed. A famous quote by Andrew Jackson states, "Any man worth his salt will stick up for what he believes right, but it takes a slightly better man to acknowledge instantly and without reservation that he is in error." Next, we'll be talking about Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren was the 8th president of the United States in office from 1837 to 1841. As a Democrat, he supported many of Andrew Jackson's ideologies. A fun fact about Martin Van Buren is that he was the first president to be born a U.S. citizen. As a result of Jackson's Bank War, Van Buren unfortunately inherited the effects of that decision in his presidency. According to History.com, his presidency was plagued by financial panic. Because of the destruction of the National Bank and for other reasons, the United States experienced the Panic of 1837. Some decisions he made while in office include, according to whitehouse.gov, completely cutting off federal aid to any further internal improvements, as well as denying the annexation of Texas to prevent more slavery and/or war with Mexico. A famous quote by him states, "As to the presidency, the 2 happiest days of my life were those of my entrance upon the office and my surrender of it." Next is William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison, a representative of the Whigs, was elected and began his term in March of 1841. Unfortunately, Harrison's time as president soon became the shortest term served in all of presidential history. After only 1 month, Harrison became sick with pneumonia and died as the first president to pass away while serving in office. Because of this short time in office, there was no greater accomplishment he made than those as a war hero in the Battle of Tippecanoe and the Battle of Tent, bringing victory in both. Although his short presidency was blank of any significant political events, his passing did bring to question the meaning of what the vice president's new role, as mentioned in the 12th Amendment, would be. There is nothing more corrupting, nothing more destructive of the noblest and finest feelings of our nature than the exercise of unlimited power, as stated by William Henry Harrison. Next is John Tyler. John Tyler represented the Whigs just as his predecessor, and he became the first vice president to succeed to presidency without an election. He was in office from 1841 to 1845. Although representing the Whigs, Tyler was a strong supporter of state rights. He was a president that was against the National Bank and increasing tariffs, proven when he went against his own party's bills for tariffs and state banks. Because of his decisions to veto their bills, he was essentially abandoned by his cabinet when most of them decided to resign because he was not falling in line with their political agenda. He became the first president to face an impeachment resolution, although it was not successful. A significant political event that took place during his presidency was the Webster-Ashburn Treaty with Britain. According to History.com, this treaty with Britain is what settled disputes between the U.S. and Britain over the U.S.-Canadian border. A famous quote by him states, "But I can never consent to being dictated as to what I shall or shall not do. I, as president, shall be responsible for my administration." Next is James K. Polk. James K. Polk, a Democrat, and according to the White House, was the last Jacksonian to sit in office. He was president from 1845 to 1849. As the 11th president of the United States, he was, at that time, the youngest to be elected into office at the age of 59. James was a very popular president. According to LeonardoNewtonic.com, he is consistently ranked as one of the top 12 presidents the United States has had. He is known for successfully leading the U.S. in the Mexican-American War and having accomplished all 4 of his presidential goals, such as reducing tariffs, instituting an independent treasury, gaining California from Mexico, and ending the dispute over the Oregon Territory. A famous quote by him states, "One great object of the Constitution was to restrain majorities from oppressing minorities or encroaching upon their just rights. Minorities have a right to appeal to the Constitution as a shield against such oppression." Next is Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor was in office from 1849 to 1850 and was the 12th president of the United States. He won the election as a representative of the Whigs, although according to biography.com, he identified more as an independent or nationalist. He was known for being a great war hero, which is what helped him to gain favor and popularity among citizens and colleagues. A significant political event that was occurring during his presidency were debates over slavery. The South felt betrayed by Taylor for his anti-slavery stance and his action to prevent its expansion. One great action in battling slavery was his encouraging of California and New Mexico to apply for statehood and create their own constitutions, hoping they would bar slavery, and they surely did. Unfortunately, Taylor did not get to continue resolving any slavery issues because he passed away just 16 months into his term as president. A famous quote by him states, "I am not a party candidate, and if elected, cannot be president of a party, but the president of the whole people." Next is Millard Fillmore. Millard Fillmore was the 13th president and was called an accidental president because he took office following Taylor's death. He was in office from 1850 to 1853. As a member of the Whig Party, he was, according to the White House, the last president not to be affiliated with the Democratic or Republican Party. In complete opposition to Zachary Taylor, Fillmore supported the idea of continuing slavery because he thought its demise would cause the Southern economy to collapse. The most significant event that occurred during his time in office was the signing of the Great Compromise of 1850, or in 1850. Having supported the Fugitive Slave Act, Fillmore lost the favor of the Northern Whigs, and according to the White House, they were the ones who deprived him of his re-election. A famous quote by him states, "An honorable defeat is better than a dishonorable victory." Next is Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce, the 14th president of the United States, was in office from 1853 to 1857. He was a Northerner Democrat and opposed the abolition of slavery. Although according to History.com, Pierce entered office during a relatively peaceful and tranquil time following the signing of the Great Compromise. Pierce entered office during a relatively peaceful and tranquil time following the signing of the Great Compromise. His decisions during his time in office did much to add to the sectional tensions over slavery. One significant event during his presidency that aroused the anger of many was the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Those who were in opposition to the act, such as anti-slavery Democrats, Free Soilers, and Whigs, formed the new Republican Party. The Kansas-Nebraska Act reshaped the territories of those states, which opened them up for settlement and railroad building. The most repulsive part of the act to those who opposed it was that it repealed the ban on slavery mandated by the Missouri Compromise in 1820. A famous quote by Franklin Pierce states, "While men inhabiting different parts of those vast continent cannot be expected to hold the same opinions, They can unite in a common objective and sustain common principles. Last, we have James Buchanan. James Buchanan entered his presidency as the 15th President of the United States and remained in office from 1857 to 1861. During a time of continued tensions over slavery and territories, Buchanan was handed many of the continuing challenges over slavery the former presidents had also faced. As an elected Democrat, Buchanan seemed to be backed by a lot of Southern support. He in fact upset many Republicans and Northern Democrats by taking actions such as supporting the Dred Scott decision that stated the federal government had no right to exclude slavery in state territories, and also by supporting Southern leaders in trying to join Kansas as a slave state to the Union. Clearly, he was a man who supported the expansion of slavery. Significant events, as mentioned by the White House, that took place during this time was the splitting of the Democratic Party into Northern and Southern sections, as well as the establishment of the Confederate States. This concludes my video timeline presentation of the 10 presidents who were in office prior to the Civil War. Thank you.